Krishna is giving me diamonds and I'm looking for stones. Um, and the other thing Prabhupada ji is saying is he's explaining Bhagwan. He's saying the reason why Brahma ji is called Bhagwan uh, is because of his supreme power. And he also understands, the Vedas he's a direct manifestation, or the Vedas are being directly manifested from him. So what's the role of the Vedas? Krishna says Vedas actually help understand that who should we surrender to? Who is our goal? So anybody who gives us that knowledge is considered on an equal level of Bhagwan. Like Prabhupada ji. Prabhupada ji is more than Bhagwan to us. Though I shouldn't say Bhagwan, but he's more than like Bhagwan. If we look at this definition, he's the one who's getting us closer to Krishna. He's showing us the path to Krishna. So those are the two key learnings that I got out of this. Prabhuji and Mataji, I'm open. Please go ahead and comment. Oh, Prabhuji is here today. Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Dandavat Pranam.
Dandavat Pranam ji.
Hare Pranam, Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Krishna, Dandavat Pranam.
Prabhuji, we started reading number 33.
33.
Ji.
Karmamaya, the form of ritualistic ceremony. He is devoted to him without deviation. Therefore, in one sense, he is not different from the Lord. And nevertheless, he should be worshipped not as monisation, but in duality. One should always remain as a servitor of the Supreme Lord. So, Brahma is called Brahmaling, which indicates that his entire form consists of Vedic knowledge. Now, a very important point here, the living entity is bound in this material world. And on his own, he has no knowledge of the spiritual realm. Like in this world, by speculation, one can maybe even reach the end of the universe, but one can never understand the spiritual forms, the spiritual nature by own speculation. So therefore, these ritualistic ceremonies described in the Vedas are actually meant to liberate one from this position. First canto, dharmasya apavargasya nartho adhyaya kalpate. Narthasya dharma ekantasya kamo labhaya hi smrita. Very important point, this one. Dharmasya hi apavargasya. So, you see, living entities are born of many, many desires. If you see great sages, even they are bound by material nature. It's not so easy. One can see the Supreme Lord face to face and still not be liberated. One may actually come face to face with the Supreme Lord. We see, for example, Kans. We see Duryodhan. They all came face to face with the Supreme Lord. But they could not surrender to him. Tesham satata yuktanam bhajatam priti purvakam. So how does one reach that stage where one can do satatam and priti purvakam? So that stage comes by execution of karma yoga, by ritualistic ceremonies. So we see, however, in Bhagavad Gita that Srila Prabhupada is condemning ritualistic ceremonies. That's because they are impossible in this age. Because there is neither the spirit of rituals nor there is facility for performing rituals. So ritualistic ceremonies are not meant for someone to enjoy this world, but rather become liberated from it. Dharmasya apavargasya na artho arthaya kalpate. So not for material gains. Actually, it is meant for liberation. So those who are advanced in nature, they are able to worship Lord Brahma and become free from this material nature. Because Lord Brahma is personifying these ritualistic ceremonies, but by following those, strictly by observing those rules and regulations, one will gradually come to the platform of liberation. One will gradually come to the platform of devotion to the Supreme Lord. So you see, now we think that it is very easy, but actually if we realize it is not. I mean, we've been chanting for so many years. We haven't seen the Lord. We haven't become purified. Actually, we are still having so many material desires in our heart, which we are trying to eradicate by chanting. So even though chanting may be the simplest way, it is not the easiest. Easier ways, Karma Yoga or Ashtanga Yoga or Dhyan Yoga, they are easier, way easier than Bhakti, because there is no need for spirit in these yogic processes. Karma Yoga, you just do the rituals. And eventually, because you are donating material wealth, you will become purified. Likewise in Gyan, because you are speculating, Bhavanam Jarmanam Ante, Bhagavan Mam. Eventually you will come to the conclusion that Krishna is the Supreme. and then you will surrender. So this is mechanical process. After many, many years of struggling around, eventually you will come to this realization. Because material nature will give you such harsh kicks. But bhakti, that is not simple at all. Bhakti is not easy at all. I mean, it's very simple, but not easy at all. Because there's the spirit of bhakti, the simplicity of the heart, that is very difficult to achieve. Hare Krishna.
No doubt we say karm yoga is easy, but isn't it the riskiest yoga to follow?
All of them are. All the yogic processes, except for bhakti, all are actually, even bhakti is quite risky. One can make so many offenses in this process. Offense to the holy name, offense to the devotees, offense to the spiritual master, offense to the holy places. One can do so many mistakes. One can make those mistakes. So, material world means padam padam yatam. Every step is full of danger. Imagine you are on a sea beach on a stormy night. Every step is full of danger. You don't know which wave will come and take you away. So material world is like that. I mean, it's a terrible place to be.
But then when we say Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, as long as we are not trying, as long as we are not deliberately making a mistake, we are trying our best to not make the offense. We should continue with our bhakti yoga, with our chanting and push through. So that kind of, this is not given in any other yoga. This is a blessing from Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. It's not given for any other yoga though, no?
See, and yet we can make offenses.
We do, yes.
See, why are we not allowed to, why is, attaining the Golok Vrindavan abode so difficult? Because Krishna and his associates, they are very, very soft. Krishna is like a flower. His associates are also very simple people. So we are very crude. We are kapti. We are like dhurta. We are kutila. Our hearts are full of diplomacy, and we are always full of hypocrisy and so many problems. So we are not allowed in the company of Krishna and his associates because they are like little children. Radha and Krishna, they are not men and women. They are children. And that's their consciousness, simplicity. They are village children. So therefore, even in the highest form of our worship, we are still worshipping Lakshmi and Narayana. So out of his causeless mercy, Krishna appears as Narayana, where we can actually worship him with awe and reverence. Krishna himself does not, appreciate any reverence or any awe. But because we are contaminated, we'll actually commit offenses. Because our hearts are full of false ego. So we are not pure. So that makes the process very difficult. That's where the offenses come in. I mean, if someone is like a simple village boy, he'll come with all innocence. If our hearts are full of complexities, we're bound to commit offenses.
एक लाइन थी, आई थिंक पता नहीं चैतन्य चैतामृता में या नेक्टर ऑफ इंस्ट्रक्शन में, उसमें वो यही बात कर रहे हैं कि वी आर सो ध्रुत, लाइक क्या था, it was exactly the way we are. Even if Prabhupada says, even if there is a minutest tinge of impurity, you will never meet Krishna.
Yes.
Until you follow Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's instructions. So when I read that actually, I'll be honest, that actually demotivates. Because at certain point, the way I am, if I talk about myself, I'll never be able to follow his instructions 100%.
It will happen, but you have to, see, that's the point, Instructions are at varying levels. Like in Chaitanya Charitamrita alone, Mahaprabhu is asked, who is a Vaishnava? He says, one who has taken name of Krishna even once is a Vaishnava. Another time he's asked the same question, he says, one who's a Laksheshwar, one who takes 100,000 names a day, that is a Vaishnava. So these are different standards, In the first standard, if you're writing 1 + 1 = 2, you'll get you'll get a very positive report from the teacher. But if you write 1 + 1 = 2 when you are a high schooler, then the teacher will think that there is something wrong. So there are different levels of instructions also. At different stages of bhakti, the instructions are different. So Chaitanya Charitamrita is doctoral study of bhakti. In Chaitanya Charitamrita, if you study carefully, you'll realize, you have studied it so far. So you have seen that Chaitanya Charitamrita doesn't appear to be linear. Even though it is linear, it doesn't appear to be so. The pastimes are like a bit backwards and forwards. Also, if you would have noticed very carefully, Chaitanya Charitamrita, the purports are very different from purports of Bhagavatam or Bhagavad Gita. In Chaitanya Charitamrita, a lot of things are implied. They're not mentioned directly.
Yes.
So those implications you have to understand. You will be able to understand those implications only when you have studied the Srimad Bhagavatam very deeply. But Srimad Bhagavatam itself you will only understand when you have studied the Bhagavad Gita very deeply. So you see, Chaitanya Charitamrita is a doctoral thesis. It's a doctoral thesis of bhakti. It's a very difficult book to study. Like, what is the mood of a devotee? What in Chaitanya Charitamrita, we're not talking about common moralities. But in Chaitanya Charitamrita, we're talking about subtle morality, the mood and attitude of a devotee. So that's what makes Chaitanya Charitamrita so hard to study. If you remember the first chapter itself, we have seen repetition of verses. In fact, the first verse itself is repeated twice more. So it's like 3 times that verse appears in the same chapter. Vande Gurun Isha Bhaktavataram. So that verse is repeated thrice because in each repetition, Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami is adding a new implication. So it's like a virtuoso performance, So Chaitanya Charitamrita is the highest way. So don't feel discouraged after studying it. Understand that you need to understand Bhagavatam and Bhagavad Gita very thoroughly before you reach that stage.
Okay, thank you, Prabhu. Hare
Hare
Krishna.
Krishna. Hare Krishna. Yes. So shall we continue?
Ji.
So text 34. ततः परस्ताल लोकालोक नामाचलो लोकालोकयोर अंतराले परित उपक्षिप्ता
तथा परस्ताल्लोकलोका नामाचालो लोकलोकयोर अंतराले परित
उपक्षिप्ता.
Thereafter, beyond the ocean of sweet water and fully surrounding it is a mountain named Lokalok, which divides the countries that are full of sunlight from those not lit by the sun. So it's very interesting. Just today I was reading. So there are different types of planetary systems, different types of planets. So in some of the planets like Bilaswar, there is no sunlight. And just today I was reading Prabhupada in one of the morning conversations is talking about abortion. And he says, those who commit abortion, the sin of abortion, will never see sunlight. Meaning that they'll never take birth in those planets where sun is available. So there are these living entities who have that kind of karma, and they are meant to also live and enjoy those places. Like, for example, if we see Europe right now, especially the northern part, the Scandics, they don't get any sunlight during the winter time actually, because the day itself is very short. Even if the day is not too short, still the sun does not rise beyond the horizon. So there is not much of a sunlight, even if the sky is clear. And then on top of that, it's mostly cloudy for the 3 to 4 months of winter. So there is practically no sun. Only enough light to discern between different objects during the daytime, but really no worthwhile sunlight. So this is actually an example of a land inhabited by very sinful people. So we continue text 35.
Yavan.
यावन् मानसोत्तर मेरोर अंतरम तावती भूमि कांचन्य अंध्यादर्श तलोपमा यस्याम रहितः पदार्थो न कथंचित।
Yavan.
यावान् मानसोत्तर मेर्वोरन्तरं तावती भूमिः काञ्चनी अन्यादर्श तलोपमा यस्यां रहित
पदार्थो
तो
न
न
कथंचित्
काञ्चित्।
पुनः प्रत्युपलभ्यते तस्मात् सर्वसत्व परिहृतासित।
पुनः प्रत्युपलभ्यते तस्मात् सर्वसत्त्व
सर्वस्व
परिहृतासित्।
Yeah, would someone like to read?
May I read, Prabhu?
Lily Prabhu. Go on, Bharati.
Hare Krishna, Vajendra Prana. Translation. Shri Prabhupada. Beyond the ocean of sweet water is a tract of land as broad as the area between the middle of Mount Samru and the boundary of Manostara mountain. In that tract of land, there are many living beings. Beyond it, extending to Lokaloka mountain, is another land which is made of gold. Because of its golden surface, it reflects light like the surface of mirror, and any physical article that falls on that land can never be perceived again. All living entities, therefore, have abandoned that golden land. Hare Krishna.
Thank you. So another very interesting aspect is that we are now describing these lands almost as if they are like plain lands, like they are flat rings. But if we see, planets are all round and they are floating in space. And Srila Prabhupada also writes, just as there are different types of islands in the ocean, so in the ocean of space, there are different islands in the shape of planets. So in a way, we can understand that these are more or less like swept planes. If you are familiar with geometry, a swept plane, when a shape is rotated, it sweeps a plane. So likewise, when we say that beyond this ocean there is that land, we can actually also understand that this is like a swept plane. So the ocean of water is not a ring, but it is actually an ocean which is rotating around the sun, and thus is swept. A ring is swept out. It's like an extended plane. Yeah. Text 36. लोकालोक इति समाख्या यद अनेनाचलेन लोकालोकस्यान्तर्वर्तिनावस्थाप्यते।
लोकालोके इति समाख्या यद्
अनेन चालेन लोकलोकस्यान्तवर्तिनावस्थाप्यते।
Yes, Prabhu.
Is it Prabhu?
Yes, Prabhu.
Translation. Between the lands inhabited by living entities and those that are uninhabited stands a great mountain which separates the two, and which is therefore celebrated as Lokaloka.
Hare Krishna. Much to explain here. We can continue. सलोकत्रयान्ते परित ईश्वरेण विहितो यस्मात् सूर्यादीनां ध्रुवा प्रवर्गाणां ज्योतिर्गणानां गभस्तयो अर्वाचिनां त्रिल।
सलोकत्रयान्ते परित ईश्वरेण विहितो यस्मात् सूर्यादीनां ध्रुवा प्रवर्गाणां ज्योतिर्गणानां गभस्तयो अर्वाचिनां त्रिल।
By the will of Krishna, the supreme will of Krishna.
Second line, Prabhu.
Oh, sorry. Lokan avitanvana na kadachit parachina bhavitum उत्सहन्ते तावद् उन्नहनायाम.
Avitanvan
Lokan
Nam
Pitanvana
Vitanvana
Kadachit
Kadachit
Karachina
Karachina
Vitum
Bhavitum
Utsahante
Sahante
Tavad
Tavad Unhanayam.
Pranayam Maha. Read, Prabhu.
Yes, please.
Translation and purport by His Divine Grace Swami Prabhupada. Translation. By the supreme will of Krishna, the mountain known as Lokaloka has been installed as the outer border of the three worlds, Burloka, Bhuvarloka and Svarloka, to control the rays of the sun throughout the universe. All the luminaries, from the sun up to Dhruvaloka, distribute the rays throughout the three worlds, but only within the boundary formed by this mountain. Because it is extremely high, extending even higher than Dhruvaloka, it blocks the rays of the luminaries, which therefore can never extend beyond it. Purport. When we speak of Lokatraya, we refer to the three primary planetary systems, Bhu, Bhuvaha, and Swaha, into which the universe is divided. Surrounding these planetary systems are the 8 directions, namely east, west, north, south, northeast, southeast, northwest, southwest. Loka mountain has been established as the outer boundary wall of all the lokas to distribute the rays of the sun and other luminaries equally throughout the universe. The vivid description of how the rays of the sun are distributed throughout the different planetary systems of the universe is very scientific. Sukadev Goswami described these universal affairs to Maharaj Parikshit as he had heard about them from his predecessor. He explained these facts 5,000 years ago, but the knowledge existed long, long before because Sukadev Goswami received it through disciplic succession. Because this knowledge is accepted through the disciplic succession, it is perfect. The history of modern scientific knowledge, on the contrary, does not go back more than a few hundred years. Therefore, even if modern scientists do not accept other factual presentations of Srimad Bhagavatam, how can they deny perfect astronomical calculations that existed long before they could imagine such things? There is so much information to gather from Srimad Bhagavatam. Modern scientists, however, have no information of other planetary systems, and indeed are hardly conversant with the planet on which we are now living. Hare Krishna.
A very important aspect here. Now you see, for example, this Lokalok mountain. So what is this Lokalok mountain? And why can't we see it? If it extends beyond Dhruvalok, then certainly it must be a gigantic mountain. But we do understand one thing, that this universe is bound by darkness. So as we are talking about this, we don't really understand even the states of matter properly. Like now when we are talking about hyperfine interactions, when we're talking about, very fine levels of quantum mechanics and quantum physics, we can understand that our own understanding of matter and its states is very preliminary, very rudimentary. We have some mathematical equations describing these states, and we are approximately able to fit theories by observing the behavior of matter. But we also understand that we really don't have a very deep knowledge of the states of matter. So certainly in a way we can also understand that these mountains like Manasottar or Lokalok or Meru, they are more like what we can say, in a sense that they are almost infinite mountains. Their size is so big and we are so minute that we are not able to perceive their presence itself. Like an ant sitting on the shoe of a man cannot perceive the position of a man, nor indeed can he even estimate how big the man is. So like that, we have really no estimate of this universe itself. It is quite a possibility that our size is so small that all our spaceships and ourselves included are just microscopic particles between the gigantic intranuclear spaces of these mountains. So therefore, we are not able to perceive because this universe itself is so large. So therefore, there is no need to speculate. We just accept the knowledge as it is. Like as one point that Srila Prabhupada mentions is, what is the use of this knowledge even? Like you may go so deeply into it, but at the end of the day, it's only material knowledge. So therefore, these things are mentioned here to indicate how consciousness is spread throughout universe, how different forms of living entities and different planets are existing within this world. Hare Krishna. Is any questions or comments?
Hare Krishna Prabhu. I think few days ago we had this discussion on all these Jambu Dvipa, and so then we were discussing whether these are islands. That's why I posted today as a group in Prabhupada's lecture. He says that actually it is an island of the air, just like there are so many islands in the sea. Similarly, this vast air or outer space and all these planets are floating like islands. So I guess, I mean, he is comparing it to space, and we are just a tiny speck in this vast space, and so we're called an island in space.
Yes. So, like Prabhu, like we are so small, like, alpha particles, they pass through the intermolecular spaces. So we are also so minute that there's a very high likelihood that we are also just passing through these spaces. We're not even able to perceive the gigantic forms of these bodies.
That's what we were discussing yesterday also, Prabhuji. In one text, that is what you said, you read it like. That's correct.
But Bharatavarsha is India, no Prabhu? Or is it like the planet Earth is part of Bharatavarsha, which is a tiny speck in space? We can interpret it both ways.
Yes, Prabhu, because at different times Prabhupada has actually mentioned this. Bharatvarsha, and if you see also, Prabhu, actually very simply, like today we see Europe and US as very developed lands. But even like 500 years ago, this was practically uninhabited.
Correct.
US was like mainly jungle with some aboriginals. And 1,000 years ago, like around 1 century BC and all, Europe was also quite underpopulated, wild area.
And primitive.
Yeah, very primitive. So they were practically considered Adivasis, aboriginals. So after the Kshatriyas, driven by Parshuram, reached Mediterranean, then the European culture really took off. So the modern day Pulindas or Greeks, they are descendants of the Kshatriyas who were driven away by Lord Parshuram.
Sure, Prabhu.
So you see, so Bharatvarsha, when we say practically everything is Bharatvarsha only. So the
Even
rulers of
Prabhuji,
this,
during the Yudhishthir Maharaj's Ashwamedha Yagya, when all the other four Pandavas went the four different directions, those who couldn't accept or didn't accept the governance of Yudhishthir Maharaj, they were all cornered to different present geographical landmasses. So
yes,
only so then whoever accepted the sovereignty and were those all then become at that time we can say that time that was the greater Bharat. If Prabhupada says
yes,
it is Mahabharat is the greater Bharat which we are discussing at that time, not the
yes,
present
that's
Bharat.
correct. That is
But
correct.
then Prabhupada sometimes in his lectures he says that okay, just to make you relevant, I'm saying Bharat is present India, but it's not the present India we are talking about. When Bhagavatam is being spoken and when it comes in the scriptures, the Bharat is not the Bharat that the geographical India that we are talking about. But just for
Yeah,
relevance
absolutely.
sake, we are telling India.
Yes, that is correct.
And then there is a lot of there are two lobbies again, like Prabhupada saying that Earth globe, and some devotees who are researching, and in Bhagavatam it is said it's like a disc. So it's like a planar module. Some people say it's a globe type of spherical type of model. But Prabhuji, you made a very nice point. When we are so infinitesimal and the creation is so large, so that whether it be in a big sphere or whether it will be a big disk plane, for us everything is so infinite. We will not be able to fathom only. So
And
the
yes,
take-home message you mentioned was very nice, that you have to understand that consciousness is prevalent everywhere on the basis of Bhagavatam. Because we may think that, okay, only sometimes due to our limited knowledge, we may think that everything is happening only on Earth or the present day Earth globe. But no, the living entities are there throughout the universe and in many universes. and Lord is also present, and other living entities also are there. In that other living entities also Atma and Paramatma is there. Same constitution is there. So these all things we need to understand. That's like it's a we can say the design is similar as long as
Yes.
you are in as long as you are in a material body, then there will be Atma and Paramatma, whether you are in this present geographical Earth planet or whether you are in some other planet.
Absolutely right. So, yes, shall we stop here tonight? I mean, it's getting really late.
Sure.
Sure. Thank you very much, everyone. Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada.
Hare Krishna. Thank you. Jai.
Thank you,
Prabhupada
Prabhuji.
ki jai.
Jai. Thank you, Prabhuji. Dandavat
Thank
pranam.
you, Prabhu. Chandra
Dandavat
Pranam.
pranam ji.
Dandavat
Hare
pranam.
Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Prabhu. Danda pranam.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Dandavat pranam.